Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the ADHD Reframe Project podcast with me, Emma. And today I am joined by Neal. So, Neal, would you like to just give me a little bit of an introduction to you, please?
You've called me now, an introduction. Yeah. So I'm Neal. I'm ADHD and autistic. I'm also the founder of the Neuro Inclusion Project and ND Care. I've written a couple of books which hopefully will be published later this year, and we're pushing for changing the system. That's pretty much where we're at. It's a big project, and yeah, we're going to make a difference.
So, obviously, I met you through LinkedIn and through the Neuro Inclusion Project
Yeah.
website. And we've known each other for a while now, but I've just been kind of having a bit of a problem with trying to find ADHD men that would talk about their experiences and talk about ADHD and why a lot of men don't really want to do that. And I just wondered if you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to, but I just wondered if is there anything specific that would stop men from kind of being honest about their lived experiences?
I think the biggest thing about a man trying to do it is that generally men are taught to be strong, to never show that there's something wrong. Every time you ask the guy generally about his personal life or how he's feeling or whatever, they're okay. They're fine. It's a cover. It's because they have to be strong. They have an image to uphold. It's this constant thing of masking. I mean, we talk about women and their ability to mask and how good they are at it, and how those masks often mean that women aren't diagnosed or are diagnosed very late, because it takes a long time for a woman's mask to break down to where she has to seek help or accepts that she needs to seek help. Now, with men, the mask is a different kind of mask. It's literally that strength. It's trying to come across as being strong and being fine, being able to support the family, being able to sort out the problems, do all the things that you're taught that a man has to do. But one thing a man has to do as well to enable himself to be able to do all of those things is that they have to be open. And this is actually a good way of doing that. It's a very, very honest way of saying that, yeah, I can say that, like for me, I've got ADHD and autism. I've also got emotional dysregulation, which I will say is an absolute bloody nightmare. There's a lot of different things that are wrong with me, but then that's just me. I'm still just a person. I'm still who I am. I've still got a family and I still look after them and so on and so forth. I just accept that there are things not that's wrong with me that are different about me, that mean that I react to things in different ways, that aren't necessarily always seen by everybody as being helpful, or they don't necessarily fit in all the time. It's just being different. That's the whole thing. Neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, emotional dysregulation, dyspraxia, dyslexia. The list goes on. All it is, neurodivergence is just another way of saying different. It's just that we've been given another label, if you like, to say that we are different, and to justify, if you like, treating us the way that we're treated, so being pushed to the side. It's just that we've taken now, neurodivergence has now actually given us a label that most people accept as a descriptor for that difference. So to say that we have a mental condition of one type or another that is different to someone that is neurotypical. But there is, in saying that, I hate the word neurotypical as well, because there is no such thing as neurotypical. There's no such thing as neurodivergence. It is literally just a case of we're all different and we have different things to cope with.
So, as you're explaining about, you have to portray the strength for a man. Obviously, in men, there's this expectation that you're the strong, you're the provider, you're this. So, when you're trying to be strong, even though you might not feel it inside, when you're trying, I would call that toxic masculinity. But I don't know if that's the right thing to say about it, but it's almost like there's a societal expectation for every man or any man to be strong, providing for his family, looking after everyone, etc., etc. But for you, what is going on in the inside when you're trying to kind of meet that expectation, what's happening inside. Societal expectations. Men have expectations put on them that they need to be strong, they need to
Right.
be the hunter gatherer, they need to look after everyone, they need to provide for their families. But as an ADHD and autistic man, like trying to kind of portray that strength, how does that kind of feel from the inside out? Because obviously you're masking who you really are. So what are the things that are going on inside?
You know, there's emotional distress. There's the feeling sometimes of being completely overwhelmed by everyone and everything. I feel very on edge. I don't know. It's really hard to try and put it into words, how to sort of sum up. It's just the mask hides the truth, but sometimes you want the mask to be the truth. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? It's really easy to get lost in a mask until the mask you can't put the mask on anymore, which, you know, I reached that a couple of years ago. I just I just couldn't cope anymore. My whole brain just basically decided that enough was enough, and it just couldn't carry on, and it just put me on shutdown. I became lethargic. I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't really think for myself. Generally speaking, the only thoughts that were going through my mind at that time was suicide, to be honest. You know, I very often, when it ended up finding myself sitting by the river locally down by the Thames, seriously thinking about floating off down the Thames and just sort of putting an end to it all. It's really, really hard to keep it up all of the time forever, which is why now I've given up. I've I am who I am. If you like me, great. If you don't, then we're not meant to be together, if you know what I mean. It's one of those things. I wish more people were like that. That level of honesty. Instead of creating a persona that is there to try and please everyone around you, to fit into this society's expectation of what you should be like and you know, what you should have, what you should expect, how to treat people, what not to do and what to do, when to do it. Let's just start being honest and start saying to someone, um, I don't think we get on, you know, and just leave it at that and walk away. And then that way you'll have true friends, that you'll have people that understand you, that respect you, that want to be around you. That's what I've found anyway. You know, it's difficult. It's really, really difficult. Being a guy, when you're expected to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to have a certain strength, to be able to do certain things, it's tough sometimes. When your insides are basically completely gone to mush and you've got no way of basically trying to get them back to some kind of normal state. Another word I don't like, normal, but there you go. It's hard without the right support, without the right people. But when you're a man, you can't ask for support because then that's viewed as weakness. So you have to try and figure it out on your own. So you end up plodding along and trying to keep going until you get to a point where you just can't keep going anymore. And then everything falls apart. And then you feel like a failure. And that makes you feel even worse. It's just a vicious, vicious cycle all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, since when were you diagnosed? Let's talk about that quickly. When were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed when I was 20, it was either 29 or 31. It's something like that. How old was I? It was 2000. It was either 2006 or 2008 when I got diagnosed. And I'd gone through, so I started off my life. I had a good childhood, but I had some rough times there. You know, I was abused by a distant family member when I was 8, which sort of set my life on a certain path. At 10, my mum left, and I ended up having my first blackouts when I was 10, which then started me on the path of that was when I saw my first psychologist, saw a child psychologist when I was 10. And then I've been seeing either psychologists or psychiatrists or a mixture ever since, basically, one form of therapy or another. And I've been through I've been through all of the therapies really, you know, CBT, DBT, EMDR. They're the ones that I've been through more than any of the others. The best successful one out of those was the EMDR. That was pretty amazing for treating chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. But yeah, it's been a journey. You know, finding out in the late 20s, early 30s that I was ADHD was such a huge relief. But then it was also then, God, it was devastating at the same time. It really did sort of blow me away a bit. It took some time for me to get my head around it, because all of a sudden then I'd been labelled as something that I didn't quite understand, because the label is about, the traditional view of the label for ADHD is a kid bouncing off the walls, going mental, not being able to be controlled, and full of energy, always on the go, not listening, constantly daydreaming, blah 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 blah. And I thought to myself, that's not what I'm like. Why are they saying I've got ADHD and I'm not like this? So then I started on the journey of trying to understand ADHD and get a better picture of it. And ultimately, which has led me to this point with building the therapeutic pathway for ADHD. That's what's led me here. Is that overall journey over 40 years of my life has led me to where I am today, which is, I feel, the right place for me to be.
Definitely. I completely agree. I couldn't agree with that more. So I was diagnosed in 2019. I had no idea I had it until someone pointed it out to me. And then since then, I've just been like polar focused on women and ADHD and late diagnosis. And actually, I feel personally that I've done the injustice to late diagnosed men with ADHD. And then more recently, it's made me realize that actually I'm missing half of the narrative. But I think, because women have not been diagnosed necessarily until recently, I've just been obsessed with that. But I think the men's narrative is also really important, particularly not just around ADHD, but around mental health, and I'm all for kind of advocating for men's mental health. And I saw something last week when I was reading, because I'm studying, and I was reading something about men's mental health, and it said there's 20 men 30 and above that kill themselves by suicide every day in the UK. Now that was just like wow, that's huge.
You need to think of it as, when you're saying about injustice, you're doing men injustice, if you like, by looking into women. You're not. You just got to understand, again, it comes back to difference. Men and women are different. They have different symptoms, different ways of dealing with things, different coping mechanisms, so on and so forth. Okay. So it's good to actually look at it as with two different lenses. Okay. The most common thing that people do, which is the biggest mistake, is that they look at it with one lens. Okay. So they look at it as every person with ADHD is going to be that schoolboy bouncing off the wall. Male or female, doesn't matter. That's the way it is. And that's the way it is because some diagnostic book somewhere has got it written down that that's the way it is. It's not. Let's get real about this. Let's actually look at this with some kind of true focus on what the actual problem is, or not the problem, what this is about. This is about people, individuals, and everyone is different. That's just the plain simple thing of it. Now, with regards to the suicide thing, I think personally, from me being in that position, when I was sitting there, and I was thinking about floating off down the river, and it was literally the most surreal kind of feeling that I think I've ever had in my life, because I could literally feel myself in the River Thames, floating along on my back, looking at the sky, just in the cold water. I could feel the coldness of it, but I also could feel the peace. Okay. And that's the thing. It's peace. And there's a big thing about that for a guy that has been told that they have to provide all of the time, that they have to be a certain way, they have to do certain things. All of a sudden, then for that not to be happening, to not being able to cope anymore, to not being able to sit with the kids in the way that you feel that you should, not being able to speak to the wife instead of shouting at her, all because you've gone down this rabbit hole because you've been masking for 20 years and the pressure's been pushed upon you now that you've got to achieve so many things in so many ways and provide so much, all because society is saying that that is the expectation. And sometimes you can't live up to that expectation. And unfortunately, for some, that's what leads them to not be with us anymore, because they can't live up to the expectation that the system has put upon them. How bad is that? That we live in a system that actually does that, that is literally killing people every day. And there'll be women as well. It's not just
Yeah,
men.
of course.
This is the thing. I know your focus then was literally on the shock of reading that that figure is there, but women go through this as well. Not in the same way as what a guy does.
Mm.
Maybe some of them do. I don't know. But each person goes through it individually and they do it for their own reasons. But the thing is they shouldn't have to do that because of societal pressures. That's wrong.
For me, after I found out, I was the same as you. I was like, I've got ADHD. And then I kind of grieved. I think I did a lot of grieving in the beginning, not long after the diagnosis of what could have been if I'd have been diagnosed earlier. But then I did a lot of, I started to make sense to myself. And I started to make it's almost like I had so many light bulb moments because I've always been told, you're too intense, you're too loud, you're too chaotic, you're too this, you're too that, you're too oversensitive. Like, you just need to shut up and sit down, basically, is what I've always been given, not just from my family, but from, places I've worked, because I am different and I do behave differently. But that doesn't mean to say that that's a bad different, it's a good different, because we need people with ADHD in society to be able to just be able to be themselves, because there's so much empowerment and so much growth when we feel comfortable enough to just be ourselves. There's so much that we can achieve. And so for me, kind of like the stigma around women with ADHD has been about kind of, we're going to be good parents, we're going to run the house, we're going to make sure that everything's kind of clean and tidy and look after the children. I've only got one child and she's an adult now and doesn't live with me anymore. But it's like that is similar kind of societal expectations, the men being able to be the strong one and provide for their families and stuff. So the expectations are slightly different, but I just think like the reason why I wanted to do the podcast and to talk about ADHD in men and women is because when we kind of just relax and unmask, I see it a lot. I see it a hell of a lot. Like when we are just ourselves, we're not only we're showcasing the best of ADHD, but we're allowing other people with ADHD to kind of unmask as well. And I think, like reframing ADHD from deficit to difference is obviously my tagline, but I just think there's so much power. Like we can become like together, we can all change how ADHD is viewed, can't we?
Yeah. Listen, right? You're different. I love it. That's all you've got to think is that you're just different. And I'm not being funny. I've known you for a while now, and I've seen you going on this journey, and it's really good because the more I see of you, the more you are coming out of yourself, the more confidence you have, the more self-belief there is. And that's good because that means you're dropping that societal pressure that's been put upon you to act in a certain way. That's a lovely thing to see. And it's lovely to see that you're doing it at a steady pace, that you're doing this in a way that fits you, that you're comfortable with. Okay. That's going to make you a very, very strong person and one that you're not going to let people walk over you anymore. You're not going to conform to societal request to to act in a certain way or do a certain thing because you are who you are. And that's one of the most beautiful things that any person can do is just literally be who they are without putting the mask on, the bloody mask, which is a complete pain in the arse. But everybody wears them. This is what I'm saying. There's no real thing of neurotypical or neurodivergent. We're all just different. We've all got different things right or wrong with us. We've all just got to realise that and just accept those differences. Get rid of the bell curve. That's a complete bloody waste of time. There's no such thing as the average man. But the bell curve was designed off measurements of Scotsmen. So I don't know why they decided that the measurement of the average man was going to be based upon a Scottish bloke. And why a Scottish guy, I don't know. I'm not saying anything against the Scots. What I'm saying is literally why? What made them decide? Was it just because they were in the area and they saw a group of Scottish men just standing around and they went, "Excuse me, I'd like to measure your biceps and other parts of your body to sort of say that the rest of the world's got to be like you." And what a load of crap, shall I say?
Didn't say naughty swear words. I don't mind the
Yeah.
naughty swear words.
It's just ridiculous. You know, let's get back. Normal is another thing that was invented. Normal is an invention. It's unbelievable. There's no such thing as being normal. What is normal? You know, what is the grade to say that you're normal? It's just not there. It's just there's
Um,
no well in it. I mean, because to me, I'm normal. And but according to society, I'm the furthest thing from normal that you could possibly get, right? But to me, I'm just normal. I'm normal. That's it. You're normal. We're all
uh,
normal, right?
yeah.
So everyone's normal. There's no such thing as being divergent or neurotypical. It's a case of we're all different, but we're all normal. There you go. And the bell curve has gone out the window.
I need
Ah,
to know what the
dear.
guidelines are for normal, and I don't think anyone can give us them because there's no such thing like,
I, I'll tell you what, Emma. I'm not
go
being
on, you're
funny.
gonna
I
turn that on
will
its head.
I've I think I've sent it to you. I'm not sure, but I'll send it to you again, and you're going to have to read it because I actually write about normal in my book. Yeah,
Definitely.
there's a whole chapter on being normal, and it goes
Okay.
on about the morality of things and how that came about and how we moralise being normal, and it's all
I need to continue reading your book then, clearly. I can post the links as well in the comments for the podcast on the Spotify and stuff if you want other people to read it because I think yeah, that'd be a great.
yeah. I think I'm gonna release it. I'm gonna publish it this year. I'm not sure when. I'm a bit busy at the moment to actually sort of sit down and sort it all out. But yeah, it's definitely going to be coming out this year. But it's worth looking out for. It's called From Disorder to Divergent, and it is literally about trying to reframe the idea that this is a disorder into divergence, which is a bit weird because I say that divergence doesn't really exist, but what I'm saying is it's difference. That's all it is. Neurodivergent basically explains that we are different. That's it.
Amazing. I love that. If you, what is one thing that you would like other ADHD men to know about being an ADHD man?
Wow, there's a good question. Do you know, probably the most important stage of my life was being hospitalized, believe it or not, for ADHD and realizing that I had to open up, that I couldn't carry everything on my own, that I had to be open about my struggles and be open about who I was. That's the biggest thing that I would want any guy or anyone with ADHD to sort of realize is that you can't go on masking forever. At some point, you know, the cost of that will become due. The body will say to you that you're paying up now, whether you like it or not. The thing about it is if you actually open up and you start accepting who you are and being who you are, you mask less. You actually start to pay that cost without having your body shut down, which is what you need to do. You need to really think about that.
Wow. Thanks for that, Neil. That's actually given me, I don't know, feel a bit lost for words, which, as you know, doesn't really happen a lot for me.
That never happens, Emma.
Exactly. It was just, it kind of, yeah, I felt that. It's what I think that was. I really did feel that. And if we think about the future, obviously, where, you're setting up the Neuro Inclusion Project and ND Care, you've got a massive kind of thing that you're working on at the moment, and we're going to be working together quite a lot in the future. But if we go to just specific ADHD, what would you like to kind of see in the future when it comes to reframing ADHD, fixing the system? I love your hashtag, fixing the system. I hashtag you in everything, by the way. That fix the system is hashtagged everywhere for me. But, what would be a good step forward for you, do you think?
You know, the biggest thing that we can make a difference with straight away, and it's not actually a hard thing to do, and that is in recognizing ADHD and actually treating it right. So actually having care put in place. It's great with the ADHD task force and all that sort of stuff that they've pointed out all of these things that need to happen and so on and so forth. But as per normal, the people of power are basically going to sit on that and take their time in trying to do something with it. I mean, I estimated that I worked it out, sat down and looked at it all and looked at other things that they've done in the past, sort of used as a benchmark. It's going to take 10 years to see any real kind of impact from that report. That's too long. It's too long. Let's actually give this a little bit of priority, recognise the crisis that it is, and actually make a difference today. Let's start treating people differently. Let's start treating people humanely, actually giving them what they need, which is the right treatment, and they need it now. They need that support and that help now. ADHD, autism, and all the other things that are covered under the neurodivergent banner, they just need help and support. You know, you treat someone in the right way, you give them the right help, the right support, the right tools, and you will have a force to be reckoned with, a person that can achieve so much, so much. It's unbelievable that, they're not seeing this and not seeing the value of it. That's what I think. I think we just need, first of all, to let's focus on getting the treatment right. Let's look at the next thing for me would be let's look at education. Let's start looking at how we're treating children. Because if we can't repair the damage that's been done already to the adults that are only just being recognised as still having ADHD as adults,
Yeah.
and then let's look at the children to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. Let's actually treat children right. And I'm not on about separating ADHD kids from neurotypical kids, if you like. What I'm on about doing is setting a system that actually treats all of them fairly and equally.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah. I think that that is, again, that's just kind of hit me in the heart. And I think one of the ways that we could do that would be by talking to peers of ADHD children and teachers and schools as a whole, and actually kind of giving them psychoeducation. Like we need to kind of. I'm going to use the word normalize, but I don't mean normalize as in what is normal. I mean normalize the fact that we're different and that we need different environments to thrive in. We need to be treated differently. We need to kind of be, our strengths need to be celebrated more than the things that we find challenging.
Yeah, but in all of that, all we need to do is basically just set a standard that fits everybody,
Yeah,
not, because what benefits us, what actually helps us, really helps neurotypical people too. The benefit is not just to us, it's just that we show up the flaws in the system a lot earlier because we're, if you like, more sensitive to certain things.
yeah,
So we show up where the flaws are. We're the ones that actually should be the diviners. We're the ones that should be pointing the way. Okay. And that should then be put in place for everybody, not just, you shouldn't have to segregate children into special schools just because they've got a certain condition. Every child should be welcome in every school, and that school should cater for those needs, not push them off to the sidelines, because that's what you're doing, and that's wrong. Let's not teach kids that you just because you have a certain condition, you have to be specially treated somewhere else. Let's make it to where people are able to be people and be normal around each other. That's accepting the difference.
yeah. I read something a couple of months ago about children, ADHD children, by the age of 7, have had 3 times more negative trauma from other people than like a neurotypical kid. So it's no wonder that by the time they get to adulthood, they're full of, like in psychology, they call it conditioning, it's operant
Yeah.
conditioning. And so, by the time a child reaches the age of 7, they've had 3 times more negative operant conditioning than a non-ADHD child. And even if us, sure, if we think back to being kids and at school and stuff like, and even being an adult, being bullied at work, being forced to behave anything but yourself. For me, my mum was my mum's a narcissist, and she just even now doesn't really kind of won't accept me as I am, so I don't have any contact with her anymore. But it's just like all of the negativity that I think I've faced in my life actually pushes me more to unmask, because I think I don't want to. It's exhausting to mask something that's a huge part of you. ADHD is not just the biggest part of my personality. There's more to me than just ADHD. But at the end of the day, if we're forcing people to kind of not be themselves, it's exhausting. But the burnout rate, you ending up in a hospital because
It's not
you
just
don't.
that either. It's the damage that's done. I mean, at the moment, I'm really working a lot at the moment on the nervous system and basically how that's being damaged by all of that conditioning that you're talking about. Generally, everyone is taught to push on through, to ignore the signals and the signs that the body is telling you that you need to rest or you need to change environment or whatever it may be that it's communicating to you. That's you're told that you have to ignore that and you have to just keep on going, just keep on pushing through to the point where we don't even recognize what those signals are, you know? That's really bad. It's really
Mhm.
bad that we condition ourselves, we treat ourselves like that, that we just expect ourselves just to keep on going. And we keep going until we burn out. And that's when we realize that things are a lot worse than what we thought they were because we've just been conditioned to just push on through. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
But when it comes to ADHD people, I mean that's for people in general. But when it comes to ADHD people, we're told to push on through, but we're told to push on through and carry this mask that we have to have all of the time. And the mask for ADHD people is intense
Yeah.
because you're constantly scanning everything. You're constantly questioning everything. Am I saying this right? Did I look at the right moment? Did I laugh at the right time? Did I say the right thing? Is my hand gesture too much? Am I twitching my leg? Oh my God, what did I say? Did I say that at the wrong time? The room's gone quiet. What did I do? All of this kind of stuff that we're constantly looking out for that goes on top of all of the bloody conditioning that we're actually put through. And it's just wrong. The whole thing's just wrong.
Yeah. Wow. It's definitely given me a lot of food for thought. And hopefully by you know, using your courage to be honest about your experiences as an ADHD man will hopefully kind of begin to help other men to be able to open up about their experiences. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of time, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Neil, and no doubt you'll be back
Yeah.
to talk to us and to talk to our listeners. I
Yeah.
will put the links to your website once I edit and publish. But for today, Neil, thank you so much. Feel honoured that you were brave enough to talk about your experience.
Emma, I'm really chuffed that you've asked me to do this. I really am. As always, it is an absolute pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. And you will be seeing a lot more of me and Neil and the team once we get going with the Neuro Inclusion Project and ND Care. So, yeah, watch this space. So, to our listeners, thank you for listening, hashtag or watching for today. And hopefully, we'll see you all soon. Take care now. Bye bye.
Yeah, take care, Em.
And you, Neil.